The idea of the kickoff workshop is to further develop important subjects for the center. 3 of the axes are violences, digital inequalities, and human-on-human relations. We're having panels on these subjects. But of course, the kickoff workshop also has the function of presenting, introducing the fellows to the community in São Paulo and vice versa. I feel a bit silly actually introducing you because you will introduce yourselves much better than I can do. So I will just say that in Mesilla we have 4 types of fellowships: junior fellowships, senior fellowships, thematic fellowships, and urban narrative fellowships. When you introduce yourselves, please tell the audience which kind of fellowship you are here for. I think Monica will be with us until August.
Yes.
And the others until end of November, if I remember well. Yes. Please go on, introduce yourselves, and I will tell you when time is almost over.
I got. Good afternoon. I am so glad to be here and grateful. I am Monica Cardim. What can I say? Well, I am a fellow thematical and about relationalities, and I am a photographer. Researcher, and I think it's more important, I am educator. I work a lot with education. It is very important to me. Maybe this is come first of all other things. It's okay. Is enough? Uh, you
can also talk about your research.
okay? I didn't know that I was the first. Okay, thank you. But it's good. The Sagrados Segredos project establishes a connection between the practices carried out in the 19th century photography studio and those practiced in candomblé houses and or terreiros. In this project, studios and terreiros studios and terreiros are recognized as spaces for ritualistic performances that can promote the constitution of identity and the development of sociability relationships. The proposal is derived from some results of my doctorate, Retratos Transatlânticos, a diáspora africana na fotografia, de Alberto Henschel. Especially the case study developed in chapter 4, in which I analyzed the photographed portraits of African and Afro-Brazilian from the collection constituted by one of those portrayed persons, the Pai de Santo Juca Rosa. Next, please. Through an exchange between members of his spiritual community in Rio de Janeiro in Second Empire. Produced in studios of the German Jewish photographer Alberto Henschel, this portrait, collected by Juca Rosa, circulated in an unconventional way, among the black people portrayed. The fact that this spiritual leader posed for portraits and encouraged individuals from his community to pose and exchange portraits with him allowed us to explain the material not exclusively as a colonial archive. Although it is not possible to say how the relationships between the photographer Alberto Henschel and the black models portrayed by him where the diversity of Juca Rosa's spiritual community is similar to those found in Henschel's customers, members of court, politicians, teachers, enslaved and free workers, white and black. If we could identify all customers from Henschel's studio and Rosa's terreiro, perhaps we could say they were regulars at both spaces, some being considered subjects of law, others not. Despite this, we can infer aspects of the conviviality between them through fragments of stories from some of those portrayed, including o Pai de Santo Juca Rosa. Next, please. Aiming to retell part or to tell part of the story of these portraits and portrayed people without reproducing, as Ariela Azoulay says, warns, the narrative of the photography promoters and all the imperial violence implied in their practices in the past, we choose to base the discussion in Afrocentric thought and creation. And then Beatriz Nascimento, considering her historical and poetical thought based on the construction of a narrative voice that questions the violence experienced by black bodies. Saidia Hartman takes the radicalization of imagination as a methodological procedure to tell impossible stories. Furthermore, the project involves dialogue with contemporary artists who discuss black corporeality, next please, in sacred spaces of Afro-Brazilian origins, based on their photographic productions. Their reflections and productions provide appreciation for non-Western technology and perspectives. Next, please. To finish, I have some questions that until now I am considered to in my project. How it is possible to retell the story of black photography, the history of black photography, without reproduce the narrative of its colonial promoters? What contributions does the story of photography of African and of African descendants, told from the perspective of those portrayed, that is, from a black perspective, bring to the history of photography? And what knowledge can we produce about the people portrayed when using Afrocentric literature and creation? How can we define the conviviality between photographers and black models, considering unequal power position in the past and nowadays? And that's it. Thank you, thank you.
Thank you very much, Monica. Yeah, the idea of this panel, of course, this is not like a long presentation of the research. They're coming here to develop the research further. So this is just a piece. Please come in the end of the year to see the full results of their research. And now I pass to Igor.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm really glad to be over here. My name is Igor de Souza, how Thomas told us. And I did my PhD in sociology at Federal University from Rio Grande do Sul, sorry, under the guidance of Professor José Carlos Gomes dos Anjos. Over here in Mesilla, my postdoc research deals with economic development projects in rural Black populations in Maranhão. I'm trying to use archives from public and private institutions, and my question is to understand how this kind of intervention in rural areas uh, has some anti-Blackness. My question is how, under the development projects, we can check anti-Black projects to do a demographic change of rural areas in North. Um, I have been researching using Afro-pessimism, racial terror, and Black radical truth. It's what I'm trying to do, but my objective is to apply to rural studies in Brazil. My question is, I think racial, how we are dealing with racial problems over here are kind of too urbanized. So we need to check to rural areas and deal with plantation economies. So what I'm trying to do. Thank you. That's all.
Hannah, please.
Okay, so thank you very much of being here and for having me here. I'm really very excited. It's my first time in Brazil, and I think that Missila is really a very special possibility of exchanging and learning. I've actually come to learn. I'm a senior fellow, and I'm going to present now just very briefly what I've been doing to come here. So I will mainly present you 3 steps in my career, which led me. The third step would be Messila, and is my project, which I will be developing during my stay. I will stay until the 30th of September. So I will start with my PhD thesis, which I developed in Bonn, Florence, and Paris. And this is the first step, and it's actually about identities. So it's also linked to the topic before, and it's about European identities, about the construction of European cultural identities in the 18th century epistolary novel, where you have imagined travelers from the Orient, which come to Europe and describe European societies. But the authors are not are not Oriental, but European. So we have this whole fiction of another coming to Europe and describing different societies. We have Persian, Turkish, Moroccan, different travelers imagined, which come to Spain, France, German speaking, and so on. And what I'm trying to show in this thesis is that the other it's actually about relationalities, that as the other is very far away, the different nations in Europe come closer to each other and get a European cultural identity. So this is the first step. Second step was my second book, which took up this movement of traveling, of moving, but it went more into the globe, and it moves from Europe to the south and comes back to Europe. It's about a migration from the global south to the global north in current narrative. So it also moves from the 18th century to the 21st century, and it analyzes the socio-economic perspective of migrant subjects in these narratives. And it's also relational, actually, because it shows how the migrant subjects, how they present themselves, the narrators, right? Because the authors also migrated from the south to the north, and how they present themselves, and how they change their position from the south to the north, whereas in the south they were maybe among the privileged. In the north, most of them are among the subalterns. And I use the figure of the subalterns as an indicator actually of the positionality, because there are other subaltern figures in the texts which help to position, right? So it's a bit complex, but yeah, just roughly speaking. And so my third point, we're arriving to Massilia, is moves again, but now centers in the south, and is about conviviality with inequalities in narratives of waste. And it actually wants to look into narratives, films, and literature where it describes the perspective of people who live from and with waste. And it asks different things. One is the function of waste for these people, and in general, how the function of waste incorporates or represents or symbolizes the inequalities. It also wants to show the the different forms of conviviality within hierarchies, between hierarchies. And the third thing which it wants to do is to show how these inequalities are negotiated in the narratives and through the production, in the production, who narrates and who is narrated, and how is this negotiated, and how are these inequalities and hierarchies dealt with. Okay, I hope that's it. Thank you.
Finally, Anna. Yes. While we are organizing this, just some things that I wanted to say. This event is being recorded. If you don't like it, maybe it's already too late. But I think you signed something in the beginning, right? But it will be online because we had such excellent panels. I'm excited to go back to them and listen to them again. So in some days it will be online on our YouTube. Messila has a very good YouTube channel. You should check it and see previous activities. We also, yeah, please like and subscribe and the bell, like everything. Follow us. We also have a very nice mailing. It's only once a month, but we all the activities previous and coming and working papers and so on. So if you still are not subscribed, check our website. Uh, we also started last year doing this very nice, we call it Fellows brochure. You probably received one already. If you haven't, there are some there in the table. And then you have like the picture, a mini bio, and a brief description of the project of the fellows. Our idea with this is to facilitate them interacting with the local community. So if you're curious, check. We're gonna, the idea is that, I don't know, some researcher of SEBRAPI looks and sees that there's a similar subject, and then they can interact, and then that's the idea of the center. Also there on the table there by the coffee, you saw there were some books of our book series. We have 4 books so far. Joaquim Toledo, our scientific editor, sitting there in the back. And we have some copies. If you want to take some copies home with you, just feel free to take them. But our book series is open. So if you go to our website, you can download the PDF legally. It's open access. This is very important for us. And I would also like to use the opportunity to introduce Livia Lima, who's sitting there on the other side. She's our new scientific editor. She is responsible for the coming book series. Our books so far have been published in Spanish and English, but we thought we needed like to have a stronger presence in Portuguese as well. This is important, especially thinking, I don't know, about graduate students. And Livia is the person responsible for organizing 4 books in 1 year. That's a hard work, and she's responsible for this Messila book series in Portuguese. Are we ready? Yes, okay. Please go on.
Hello, everyone. Good afternoon. My name is Ana Coutinho. I'm a junior fellow at Messila this year. I'm grateful for the opportunity to present my research in this space. And well, since 2016, I have been conducting field work with the Tapirapé Ampawa people, Tupi-Guarani group. The research I will be developed at Messila is based on ethnographic work and emerged as an extension of the reflections produced during my PhD. In my thesis, I focus on a set of rituals that the Tapirapé understand as cyclical and presents a series of human and non-human relations. I paid particular attention to the ritual of the enemy, which they perform every year. I'll show some pictures. Over the course of my research, I came to understand how an artifact, especially a ritual mask, can become capable for abducting agencies and producing efficacy within ritual contexts. The visible and invisible presence of various non-human beings during these rituals led me to my current postdoctoral project, which investigates the systematic sale of ritual masks by the Ampawa to non-indigenous buyers beginning in the late 60s. Sorry. My goal is to understand the movement and material transformations of these masks. The masks in the ritual. The masks used in rituals retain certain characteristics that are excluded on purpose from those made for sale. And the production of ineffective objects destined for museum storage does not necessarily render them without purpose. Today, the mask known as UP, so the name of the mask, Cara Grande, Big Face in English, is part of numerous ethnographic collections in European and North American museums. My object is to retrace the meanings of the circulation of the UP mask, focused on two key moments. One, the context in which the masks were first produced and sold out the village in the 60s. And two, the current reception by the Ampawa of the digital images of the masks. The Ampawa now have a museum in their village and are interested in gaining access to digital images of the masks held in Euro-American museums. This leads me to the following concerns. In what ways the historical context of indigenous objects being sold to various buyers contributes to the creation of convivial forms revealing indigenous strategies for relating to different forms of alterity? How the modes of mask production for diverse buyers reveal a Tapirapé response that articulates both conviviality and inequality? And how does the process of indigenous musealization and the interest in digital collections dialogue with the broader context of contemporary museums? How might the impacts of digital restitution contribute to the emergence of new forms of coexistence between people and collections. Thank you for the attention.